Hello everyone. Good evening. Today is the 31st anniversary of the Tiananmen Massacre. We as American university students come here to commemorate for Tiananmen Massacre 35th anniversary in GWU. In his book, The Book of Love and Forgetting, the well-known Dutch novelist Milan Kundera wrote, "The struggle of man against power is a struggle of memory against forgetting. Because humans are coupled with the status quo, it's easy to forget the enormous disaster of authoritarianism. However, memory tells people of the existence of dictatorship and persecution and awake them to stand up against inhuman regimes. 35 years ago, the Chinese Communist regime cracked down on peaceful protesters and killed almost 10,000 innocent people, including thousands of university students, in Chinese capital Beijing on June 4, 1989. This is an unprecedented catastrophe against democracy and human rights. Today, the Chinese Communist regime continues to suppress at home and aggressive abroad. Over the past 35 years, the Chinese Communist regime's persecution of participants in the 1989 democracy movement, human rights lawyers, dissidents, Christians, Falun Gongs, and other groups has continued unabated. Hong Kong has become indistinguishable from mainland China authoritarian society, and nearly 2,000 dissidents have been arrested in the name of national security law. Genocide and concentration camps in Xinjiang continue, and repressive policy and cultural genocide in Tibet are intensified. Not only that, the CCP continue to create trouble in South China Sea and the disruption of peace in Southeast Asia. Just as Russia invaded Ukraine, the Chinese regime is trying to invade Taiwan and work with Putin to reshape the world order. The Chinese Communist government has become the biggest threat to the free world. At every moment, it not only harms the Chinese people, but also intimidates or harms freedom-loving and peaceful-loving people all over the world. Today, we want to awaken once again the memory of the Tiananmen Massacre in the world. Once again, remind the world to pay attention to the imminent threat of the Chinese regime to the world. And once again, hope that people of inside from all over the world will unite to jointly promote China's democratic process and end China's authoritarian dictatorship. Therefore, we, as university students in the United States, George Washington University and Catholic University students hold a candlelight party tonight to commemorate the Tiananmen Square Massacre. This is the significance of memory of the June 4 35th anniversary. Okay, we make together words. Free China!
Free China!
Free China!
Free China!
Free China!
Free China!
Step down CCP!
Step down CCP!
Step down CCP!
Step down CCP!
Okay, every student, every person can deliver a speech regarding the June 4 35th anniversary. Robert, you first.
Hello everyone, my name is Robert Gray. I'm also a student here at the George Washington University. I want to thank my friend Bosch for organizing this, because this is a tragedy that I think is often ignored, frankly, in America. It really took until me coming here to this school for it to be more visible for me and for me to really acknowledge that this is something that is not just relevant for China and the people that sacrificed their lives for their country and for democracy, but for the United States and every country that holds the freedoms or holds the principles of freedom and democracy and human rights in their hearts. And I think as an American, we can get very comfortable. We don't realize the sacrifices that the people at Tiananmen on that day, June 4th, 1989. The sacrifices that normal people, like students, it was primarily student movement, but there was also regular workers, people from the countryside, and people even beyond Beijing too. They protested as well. And this is something that we forget as an American, I think, too often. And we're so detached. Like, we live very comfortable lives. We're very disdainful generally of the political process without acknowledging the sacrifices that it took for this to happen, that we can live these comfortable lives. So I think honoring these people that sacrificed their lives not just for their country, but I think for mankind and for the rights of everyone to live in peace and freedom and self-determination. I think this is the least that we can do for them. In a just world, our politics, internationally and domestically, would correspond with the principles that they promoted and championed and would honor them. And I think this is the first step as Americans that we can take to truly honor their sacrifice. So thank you again.
I have dedicated a lot of my time at this university to study China and the impact that China has had on the globe. I know for a fact that China can be such a large force of good in so many aspects. The country has come so far, civilizationally and politically, yet it still has so much more to go. As someone with parents and family from Taiwan, where we as Chinese people on the Taiwan island experience freedom and experience democracy, I know that the Chinese people can live under a system where freedom of expression, freedom of the press, and freedom of all peoples, of stripes, all religions, can live harmoniously together. I know that because I've lived it, both here in America and here in Taiwan. On Tiananmen Square, there was a chance for China to also join in the free world, a chance for China to come with us, with the rest of the world, in living harmoniously together, and to live in a society where rights are respected. But the CCP and the tyrants in Beijing were scared to listen to the voices of the students. We're scared to listen to what students, journalists, and even the workers of Beijing and the workers of China had to say. They knew that under a free society, they would never get to survive for another day. So they chose to express themselves in a language that they only knew, which was violence. Violence against students, violence against those who could not defend themselves, violence against the workers of China, the very people they swear to protect and uphold. Let us never forget Tiananmen Square, and for the students who gave their lives to show the rest of the world what we in the West take for granted. That is political freedom, freedom of expression, and for the right of students to protest against what they see as tyrannical and unjust. I pray for the people of China to one day wake up to fight for what they should have, which is indeed their human rights. Thank you.
So I'm not entirely prepared for this. However, if I may, I was just going to recount some of the events of June 4th from my understanding, from a Western perspective. So from my understanding, I wrote this, the Tiananmen Square Massacre, or as it's more commonly known in China, the June 4th Massacre in China. So the protests in Tiananmen Square began not as a protest, but instead as a memorial for Hu Yaobang, the General Secretary of the Communist Party who died on April 15, 1989. Hu Yaobang was an individual who was more progressive than the majority of his Communist Party peers. And in the wake of his death, many university students came to call for the same reforms that they believed that Hu represented prior to his death. These calls were not necessarily for an end to the communist rule, but instead for a greater sense of democratic principles and an end to the existing structure of the Chinese Communist Party. At their height, these protests involved an estimated 1 million people in Tiananmen Square alone, and numerous lesser protests in more than 400 cities throughout China. But as all authoritarian governments do, the CCP saw these demands only as a threat to their rule and their existence. And on the 4th of June 1989, the Chinese Communist Party set their party-aligned People's Liberation Army to violently quell the protests. Though the CCP claims that only 241 deaths have occurred, many other sources, including those backed by eyewitness claims, number the deaths much higher, in the range of 800 to 10,000 Chinese citizens that were murdered by their own government. The lessons of Tiananmen Square that I see from the Western perspective are that we as Americans need to realize that the Chinese people, just as much as any people throughout the world, want a democratic government. They want the right to self-determination, and they want accountability for their government. It is very easy in our today's world for Americans to just see China as an enemy due to their actions in recent years. But as Americans, it is very important for us to understand that it is not the Chinese people that are our enemy. It is the Chinese Communist Party. That's all I have for right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Support the Chinese people. Democracy.